Welcome, Pewter Report readers and listeners, to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius. I am John Ledyard from PewterReport.com. Along with me today is the one, the only, the infamous Grizz Taylor Jenkins. It's a great day on the podcast, Grizz Jenkins. I'm always yelling at all of you.
It's a good day. I can see why. I'm an excitable guy. I'm an excited guy. I'm a guy who gets the people going. And we get the people going more than Grizz Jenkins. Free agency.
This guy right here. Ryan Succop, Grizz Jenkins. He's back, baby. Ryan Succop. The beautiful automatic leg of Ryan Succop from the 2020 Bucs Super Bowl season is back in Tampa Bay. We are going to talk about that on the podcast today. We're going to talk about why the timing of his re-signing with the Bucs is perfect, but also hilarious, because I was already titling this show, What is going on with Bucs free agents? And then they signed one. And so, because we had like 2 days of silence. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about what's going on with the other Bucs free agents. We might have a Bucs free agent even sign while we're on the podcast to give us some live content. And no Bucs free agents have signed anywhere else, Taylor. We've got to talk about that too. All of it coming up on the Pewter Report podcast, brought to you by our friends over at Celsius powers active lives every day with essential, functional energy. And the energy we are feeling right now is coming from Celsius Strawberry Guava. Healthy energy, zero sugar, accelerates metabolism, burns body fat, tastes like straight from the heavens nectar, sparkling strawberry guava.
Especially that flavor. Best flavor they got.
Now, Taylor, you had tried this flavor before me because you were the first one onto Celsius, as you always like to tell us. And you tried this flavor and you said strawberry guava. It's up there. You got to try it. So as soon as I got strawberry guava, I literally threw one in the fridge immediately. As soon as it got cold, tried it. Unbelievable. You were not lying to it all. This is probably, it might be my favorite. Blueberry pomegranate, orange sickle. I'm trying to think what else. Kiwi guava is really good. There's a lot of good flavors. So go to Celsius.com, find a store near you that carries it. Also, you can go on Amazon. You can order from the variety pack on Amazon. Check that out for Celsius for sure. These things are taking over the world. You've probably seen them already. They're all over the place. But they were on with your boys before they were even that big. You know, now they're blowing up everywhere, and it's great stuff. So everybody knows why. So definitely check out Celsius. Get some for y'all today. John is hyped. Jeremy says you're right. I'm hyped. I mean, we're literally about to watch a team bring back every single player that matters from a Super Bowl team. That's never been done before. It's crazy. To be a part of covering it, crazy. Ryan Succop back in the building. Obviously an unbelievable season, the best season in Bucs kicker history last season. And Bucs history, right? Bucs kicker history. Bucs,
not just kickers.
Bucs history for
best
a kicker.
Season in Bucs history, any position. Any player ever.
Scott Federico says maybe Scott was too hyped to come on the podcast. Yes, Scott was scheduled to not be on the podcast. I'm honestly surprised. We haven't even heard from him since this happened. It's been 24 minutes, I believe, since the tweet went out to Ryan's, and we have not heard from Scott. Hopefully he is not hammered somewhere, out of his mind, unable to process this great moment, because Ryan Succop is a Buccaneer for the next 3 years, and this is life or death to Scott. I mean, this was everything.
Yeah, drinking Celsius vodkas.
Scott literally wrote this in an article here, Taylor. He wrote in an article this past week that Ryan Succop, in some ways, Ryan Succop was as important a free agent signing as Tom Brady. And I changed the sentence. He doesn't know that. Hopefully he won't listen to this podcast. Hopefully he's not listening live. I changed the sentence to say something a little bit less likely to get people coming after him on Twitter, because I love the man. But that's how much he loves Ryan Succop, and that's how much he suffered. And you've suffered as well watching these kickers over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about it on the pod. I've written about it a couple times. Extremely dubious record that the Bucs have had. Last year was the 9th consecutive opening day in which the Bucs have had a new starting kicker. We've seen the Matt Gays, the Nick Folks, the Chandler Catanzaros, the Roberto Aguayos, the Matt Bryants, everybody who has come through this Bucs locker room for the past 9 years as a kicker was gone by opening day the next year. And finally, John, we have Ryan Succop. So I cannot blame Scott for thinking that he is so important. We've seen games lost. I mean, when you look back on some of, I think if you talk to some fans, you'll look back at a game. Martin Gramatica kicked a game-winning field goal against the Eagles, and in December, I believe it was, late season. And I mean, that's such a huge moment. And then for every one of those moments you have in Bucs history, you know, you have so many years of just dead flat games lost. And so it's so massive. It was so massive for him to kick the way he did. I think looking back, he was not field goal percentage of 90.3. I think that was the highest rate with a certain number of kicks attempted. He was nearly perfect, 52 of 57 on extra points. It's a deeper extra point the last few years, and I think 1 or 2 of those was blocked in the regular season. Like someone said here in our comments, build a statue. I don't think it's a coincidence that Ryan Succop comes in and the Bucs win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not. He was actually a huge part of what they did. There's no question about that. Also, they put him in great situations too, because he wasn't going to be kicking a lot of 50-plus yard field goals, which is what's ailed him. So I want to get to the details on Ryan Succop. We're amped to have Ryan Succop back. There's also a matter of cost with Ryan Succop. We need to talk about that because it's very important. History has shown us it's not wise to give kickers a lot of money, especially for a long time. And so what's the details here? We know it's $12 million. We know that he got $12 million total over a 3-year deal, $6.25 million guaranteed. So the guarantee's not too bad. I mean, that's 50%, a little over 50% of it. So not too bad, but over a short deal, you're imagining it's pretty front loaded. Greg Auman from The Athletic tweeted that his 2021 cap number should be about $2.8 million. We're not sure about the Aaron Stinnie deal, the details of that one yet, but the Bucs didn't have that much cap space going into the day. And so now they've probably used most of that. So now there's a restructure probably happening for somebody, and then that will create room for the other moves they need to make. That's kind of how the Bucs do it. They kind of work as they go and just kind of restructure here and there and do things as they go. So Succop's cap number for this season is low, which is good, $2.8 million. That's fine. Next season, it will probably be higher. Next season, it's probably the rest of the guarantee. So what is that, 3.8 or something like that? So it's going to be higher next season for sure. Next season, the Bucs also have a ton of cap space. So that's probably how there no void years in this one. So they're not kicking any money down the road per se. So basically what they need is Succop to be good this season. If he's good this season, then next season, obviously, he plays, he's worth the money that they're paying him. And then we'll see what happens next season. But once it's underway, anybody's guess what's going to happen. But, this is the season they really need him to be good in. And so if he's good in this season, he earns his contract for next year. And then after that, they're probably able to get out of it without any cap hit at that point for 2023. So it looks like a lot on paper. The way it's structured, though, the guarantees up front, it's going to be front loaded. Again, I'm not a big fan of paying a kicker, period. So it does matter how it's structured, though. And this one looks like the Bucs did a pretty good job of it. Also, the Bucs are in such a good cap situation long term that it's not really that big of a concern right now. If you didn't listen to the podcast yesterday we had Brad Spielberger of Pro Football Focus, cap expert, contracts guy that was on talking about the Bucs, and we asked him straight up, are the Bucs in trouble with how much they're kicking the can down the road with some of these void years? And he said not even close. They're not even close to being in a bind. He said the biggest difference between them and the Saints, Steelers, Eagles, those kinds of teams, those teams did it for years and years. And they did it past their window where they should have kept doing it. The Saints might be doing that right now, is what he implied. The Bucs are entering that window, have never done it really before, haven't done that at all. They're the lowest team in the league to use that kind of a strategy. And so they kind of have put themselves in a great situation basically moving forward. So I'm not going to get up in the air about Ryan Succop's contract long-term, but I will say it is a risk. Kickers are volatile, and you just really can't trust them. Much as I like to say you could trust Ryan Succop, it's hard to. I never trust a kicker. I tweeted that probably if you go through my tweet history, I've said never trust a kicker probably 1,000 times, Taylor, because it's just not something you want to do.
And I mean, you can see it in Pittsburgh with Chris Boswell. I mean, so great for years. I mean, and things just drop off. You've seen it with Dan Bailey, and it's not like.
Hold on. Are you slandering Chris Boswell right now?
Am I? Huh?
Are you slandering? Chris Boswell?
No. I mean, it's just you see how guys have dips. I mean, you go from Chris Boswell kicking, what did he have, like 7 field goals a couple years back in a December game in Heinz Field, and then you have years where he's not.
He had that one year. He had that one year where he struggled like crazy, right?
And exactly. And then you have years like that.
Everybody's like, he's not like, and then the next 2 years he's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
He barely misses. It's crazy.
And then you have Ryan Succop, who's no spring chicken to say the least. He's a 12-year veteran, something crazy like that. But you like to think that he will be successful. But the thing, like you said with kickers, is they are so unpredictable. It's almost you don't know when it's going to happen or why it's going to happen. We've seen Succop come back from an injury and struggle, came back this year and was, phenomenal. But granted, you mentioned he kicked his season long from 52 in the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I think he only attempted 2, 3, 4, something like that from 50 yards all year. But that's exactly what the Bucs wanted. The Bucs drafted Matt Gay. He had this massive leg. He was fully capable of kicking the ball 60, 65 yards. But what Bruce Arians said after the season, after Matt Gay's rookie year, last offseason, he said, we want the guys who are going to hit the gimmies. He said, hit every single extra point, hit every single kick from inside 30 yards. I think he was perfect from inside 40 this year. Ryan Succop was. Just unbelievable. He was, I think, perfect from inside 40 or perfect from inside 30 with 1 or 2 misses farther than that. He was 52 of 57 from extra point. A couple of those were blocked. He nailed the gimmies. He was consistent, and Bruce Arians did not want, he said, it really sucks when you drive your offense down inside the 10-yard line, you can't convert, you end up settling for a field goal, and then you miss it.
Right.
He said nothing kills an offense like doing all that work, being able to get in the end zone, and then coming away with no points. So Ryan Succop was, we can't say he was out there, kicking a bunch of 50-yarders, but he didn't have to. He was perfect where he needed to be. And if that's what you want from a kicker, that's exactly what you got last year, and you just hope that continues.
Now, Tom, Bucs fan, is saying, according to Succop, it's $8.25 million first 2 years. All those guarantees are paid after 2 years. But if he's only getting, unless there's a bonus, I don't know. I have to look at the contract structure numbers exactly. But you wonder what his cap hit then is, because guarantees are low in the second year. Are higher in the second year, but he might have even a bigger cap hit than that. So we'll have to look and see what those numbers look like over the next 2 years. But they are banking on it for sure. They are going for it. Again, if their cap situation was worse overall, it would be hard. It would be easier to criticize this. But it's basically a 2-year deal. And so, they are betting that he doesn't fall off this season. Again, here's the other part of it, that I will have a more negative reaction to it if they're not able to bring back somebody like Ndamukong Suh because of it. I don't anticipate that happening.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's where you can't sacrifice something to me, is at a spot like that. Now, I know kicker's important. I'm not going to act like it isn't. It's just harder to predict whether the one you signed is going to be good or not. And that matters too. Yeah. And so there's a lot of layers to it. But they really need Ryan Succop to be great next season to justify this. Otherwise, it's going to look like a very bad contract. Even if it doesn't necessarily kill them for next year's cap because they're in such a good spot and next year's cap could go up a ton. They are kind of going for it in this window, and they're saying you're a guy that we really need, to win in this window. And so we'll see if he proves that he's worthy of that. It's a risk, but like I said last year, really not much more Succop could have done to earn it, right?
Jason Light has spent so long trying to fix his position. He's spent so long. He is drafted 2. 1, he traded up in the second round. Nobody will ever let him forget it. It's over. It's done with. The Bucs have a Super Bowl. We can put it in the past, but it happened. He drafted Matt Gay in the 5th. That absolutely, I was at One Buck Place. We were doing our live draft cast. I remember exactly where I was when they drafted Matt Gay. I was walking from the media room down to the little interview rooms where we had the live draft cast going on. They had a TV set up. 5th round pick, Matt Gay. My jaw, I almost dropped my glass of water. I was going to fill up my cup of water. I almost dropped it. Jaw hit the floor. That after trading up for Aguayo in the 2nd. And what's crazy is I knew that they were interested in kickers. I actually talked to Matt Gay at the East-West Shrine game that offseason.
Wow.
And they drafted him, and I went, no. I go, they are going to come for Light's neck. This city will come for Light's neck if Matt Gay doesn't work out. So once Jason Light found that guy, found the consistent guy, locked him down.
Yeah. I think it's fair to wonder, I think it's a good point that you bring up, though. It's fair to if there was a little emotion in this decision for Jason Light. And most emotions by a GM, or most decisions that are made by a GM out of emotion, are not good decisions. And so I think it's fair to wonder that a little bit about this move. But at the same time, the reality is the reality, Taylor. We can talk about how volatile the kickers are, but at the end of the day, Ryan Succop made 90% of his field goals last year. And I think he had 2 blocked, 28 of 31, something like that on the season. And he made 91% of his extra points. He missed 5, but I think there were 2 of those blocked too. So,
and like 4 of his misses came against Detroit. 3 or 4 came against Detroit.
And that was a game that was a complete blowout.
Yeah, a blowout. And Arian said he said he didn't like kicking against the turf before the game.
He's never kicked well at Ford Field. Yeah, never. Yeah, so I went back to look at his career. I was like, 4 years ago, he kicked it 4. Yep, still bad. It's weird. But he's had a good career overall. I mean, this is not a guy he's always been above 90 on extra points, even since they moved the extra point back. Even in field goals, that 1 year, the year he was hurt, 2019, was really the only year that he even struggled at all. And it was really, it was a 1-for-6 type of season in field goals. And he still made 24, 25 extra points. He didn't kick many field goals because that was when he was with the Titans when they had that ridiculous red zone run where they barely kicked any field goals. And
that was insane.
Right. So he really has not had a bad year per se. His worst year was going back to 2013, I think, Kansas City, something like that. He really just hasn't had many bad years in his career. So he's been about as consistent as it gets, overall. And I think that, the Bucs are obviously banking on that. And with their offense, you better not need a kicker, to be that great. That's, I think, what they're banking on too. Just be safe at the position.
All right, John, you're back.
What? Do you see that?
Yeah. I lost you for a second. I thought I was going to have to take over, go in solo, but you bounced back.
That was my whole screen just went down. My whole screen.
We had the little spinning circle, but we're back. We're back. Ryan Succop.
That was my whole laptop screen went black. I've got all kinds.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah, okay. The whole screen did. I don't know why. The computer's plugged in and everything. Scary moment there on the podcast. Scary moment there on the podcast, but we're back. So I think that it's a deal that it's one of those situations, Taylor, where it's like on the surface, yes, I think you're right to be skeptical of the amount of money that they gave a kicker in this situation. On the other hand, I think Jason Licht's deserved a little bit of room for grace on this one, especially considering the fact that we're talking about the best season for a kicker in Bucs history. So, me, I never hold back on being critical no matter what's happened recently with the team or with the GM. But I do think this is a situation where I get it. It might not work out, but I understand the process here. And the Bucs are certainly in a good enough space without, with the cap and everything else that they've done. They're in a good enough space that they can miss one. You know what I mean? They need one. They need to be able to have the freedom to potentially make a mistake in a situation like this. If
the Bucs season comes down to one field goal, if Ryan Succop misses a field goal that loses at Bucs one game, and that's what cost them, they've got a lot more issues. Yeah, they've got a lot bigger issues. If that's what cost them their season, granted, if it happens in the waning seconds of an NFC Championship game, that's different. That's massive. Right. But if, it's a week 8 miss, like a Matt Gay against the Giants after kicking 5 or whatever field goals he had that day, then it is what it is.
Right.
That's what happens. The best kickers in the world miss those situations. So.
Right. Yeah. So it's a good move for the Bucs. We're excited about it. We also recognize that it does come with some risk, and we've, I think, presented that and laid that out. So again, we're not trying to be biased towards what they're doing at all, but it is exciting to see a team that's had as much success as they've had, as much cohesiveness as they had last year, really make this concerted effort to bring everybody back. But it's not just who they've brought back, Taylor. The Bucs have not lost anyone. That's crazy, dude. Nobody. They have 19 now they have 18 with Succop. Free agents. They've re-signed 6 guys now at this point. Nobody has left. It's remarkable. No one's gone to another team. We've heard interest from the Patriots and Leonard Fournette, interest from the Seahawks and Leonard Fournette, interest in Raheem, known as Roach, as a defensive tackle from the Bucs by the Patriots. We wrote a story today. We know the Bills talked to Rob Gronkowski at some point. But all that has resulted in nothing. Nobody's left at this point in time. Some people will leave. Not every human being from last year's roster will be back, but pretty dang close to that. Will probably.
When you re-sign all these major players and you lose Jack Sitchie, it's like, okay, I think they did their job. I think they did okay. And I know I always get flack because the 2 things I talk about on this podcast, 3, I guess, are my longtime Celsius love, Dewey and USF. But it's an old mantra for USF recruiting that's been here, through coach after coach after coach, that you build a wall around Tampa. They say it every time. You've got all this talent in Tampa. They go off to the Floridas, the Florida States, the Miamis. If you can build a wall around Tampa and keep your guys here, you can have a good football team. And it's really the same mantra that the Bucs have built. They go, we've got this team. We won a Super Bowl. And I think ahead of schedule, I think most people realistically thought, the Bucs are going to make a step forward in 2020, but 2021's the year when, that's when they put everything together and they have the full off season and everybody's gelled and they know the offense, they know the defense, and everything comes together in 21's year, and they're already ahead of schedule. But then you come into this off season, and Bruce Arians, he said there, after the thing, he said, your butt ain't going anywhere, your butt ain't going anywhere, and he's re-signed them all. He's got Levante David, he's got Shaq Barrett, he's got all of these guys back. Chris Godwin, Ryan Succop, and now they continue. Can you bring in Ndamukong Suh back? They've taken the ultimate, put a wall around it. Don't let these guys go. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
And why? I mean, when you have a roster that you clearly know can go out there and beat. I mean, I don't know how you feel, but this Kansas City Chiefs team is one of the best I have ever seen in my lifetime.
Agreed.
They're one of the best football teams I've ever seen in the last 2 years. And the Bucs went out there and wiped the floor with them. That may have been an off day for the Chiefs. It may have been some injuries. Whatever. They beat the crap out of them. They beat a very good Packers team on the way here. They beat arguably the best roster in the NFL with the Saints. Mm-hmm. You have that. You have all of that. And this Bucs team wasn't even that caliber for most of the year.
Yeah, you're right.
If this Bucs team, we know the roster is among the most talented in the league. If they come out playing from week 1, the caliber they were playing from week 14 or week 15 on.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, we said it.
Why
all
change
season long.
Anything?
We said all season long that this was a team that could be so good if they stopped beating themselves. And once they became that team, they started winning all over the place in the regular season and the playoffs. That was. Again, that is the kind of potential talent that we're talking about with this team all the time. Now, I think you're right. They can be even better this upcoming season. Bringing Succop back helps keep that continuity. So, it'll be fascinating to see what happens with Antonio Brown, Leonard Fournette, even guys like Ross Cockrell we're getting to start talk about now. Can they bring a guy like that back? What happens with the depth of the defensive line? We'll talk about that as well. But Jonathan Stone, appreciate the super chat, $10 super chat. Big shout out. Thank you guys a little bit for the super chats of recent. That has been a nice little boost. Getting those back for sure. He says that red zone defense was lights out during the playoffs and the Super Bowl. Stoked we were able to bring back most of our guys. Still holding out hope Suh makes it back. Keep up the great work, guys. We really expect Suh to be back. We're not necessarily reporting anything here that people don't know, but we really expect Suh to be back. We just think it's a timing thing. I think Suh knows they want him back. They know they want Suh back. I think they're just like, wait, we're going to clear the space you want, then we're going to sign you. And I think Suh believes that. And I think it's kind of just I think that's where we're at right now. You never know. Some things could get crazy out of nowhere, but the Bucs want him back. And again, the other thing with the Bucs, and why I feel so strongly about the fact that they'll bring him back, is that nothing has happened. If you look at the Bucs and other defensive linemen around the league, they haven't really pursued anybody else that we know of so far. Also, there isn't anybody on the roster really that's ready to step into that role. And so I think he will be one of the later free agent signings probably. But I definitely think that he will be back in Tampa Bay. So then the question becomes Antonio Brown. Is he getting other offers? We're not sure. It's been very quiet on the Antonio Brown front. We know there's interest in Leonard Fournette. We've talked about in the show. We believe that he's probably getting more money and more opportunity from other teams, definitely Seattle. And then we would think New England as well. The question is, does he want to leave Tampa Bay? Because he loves Tampa Bay. So we'll see.
Seattle's such a meme, man. I joked about it with Trevor today. I said, if two of those Bears starters were running backs, they may have accepted that trade.
Right.
We talked about it before the pod. 3 firsts, a third, and 2 unnamed starters by the Seahawks or by the Bears to the Seahawks for Wilson. No go. But if those have been Tarek Cohen, and
David Montgomery,
maybe we got ourselves a trade going. Yeah, but I think Leonard Fournette, former top 5 draft pick. We know he's got talent coming into the league. He's had good years. He had a phenomenal playoff run. There's a team out there that looks at that playoff run and they go, man, we can get them back to Pro Bowl caliber. We can fix them. We got the offensive line. We got the coaching. We can make this guy a 1,200-yard back again. And I just think that there's going to be enough general managers that will find him affordable enough. And by affordable enough, I mean affordable in the scheme of the league, but more expensive than the Bucs will want to pay to land him somewhere.
Right.
And I think potentially we talked about the other day, the same thing with Antonio Brown for different reasons, obviously, than talent, because we know that's not an issue with AB.
Right.
But I think same thing.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. We'll talk about the other Bucs restricted free agent that was brought back. Actually, we'll talk about their restricted free agent situation in general with the Bucs right now, because there's a lot going on that front as well, for sure. But I do want to give a shout out to Locker Room. Locker Room is a social audio app that is changing the way we talk about sports. It is the only place for live audio conversations about the takes, rumors, news, and teams you care about. React to sports news as it happens. Gather all your friends and watch parties for the biggest games. Rep your favorite teams and find your community. Better Sports Talk is just a tap away. Download on the Apple App Store and join the conversation. Locker Room, again, great stuff. I know what
so much fun.
Tomorrow night,
Matt and I will be going live.
That'll be awesome. I was waiting for something live to happen, or for something for news breaking to happen, and then react to it. Of course, Succop happens right before we're about to go on the podcast.
And we have to come on here.
Exactly right. So now we've got to wait so when Sue or something like that happens, I will be going live on Locker Room and reacting to that and getting some people in there to talk about that. And we'll probably deviate into some draft talk at whatever position we're talking about too, your offensive line, things like that. So we'll see what happens with those regards, but definitely download Locker Room, follow Pewter Report on the Locker Room app. A lot of fun conversations happening in there for sure right now. So here's an interesting thought from Long Lost Glazer before we get into the Bucs RFAs. Strictly from a business standpoint, Carlton Davis has a ton of leverage over this current roster construction. He could threaten a long-term extension or hold out, demand a trade. Can't compete without him. I get the thought process a little bit, but it's not going to happen. I mean, Carlton Davis, first of all, Carlton Davis is a good player for sure. No question. I think he's a really good player. And I think people don't realize how good he was last year. They realize how good Carlton Davis was last year. He's got to play this season. Like, he really does. He's got to play this year and prove that and earn the big money deal. I think that, before this season, he wasn't on the radar for many people. This season, I think he should be on the radar for a lot more people. But it's not like Carlton Davis has had 3 lights out years. He was a first round pick.
Yeah.
Then he's going to, if he were to hit free agency today, he'd break the bank. But if he has another lockdown year and he falls number ones and he plays at that level, he's going to be in position for that kind of a deal. So he just doesn't have the kind of leverage for a big contract yet that you need to be. And this was his first year with ball production. This was his first year being recognized as a number one that could follow other number ones. It's just not enough time. If he had done this for 3 years, maybe he'd have a point, but it's just not going to happen with as little as he's put out there right now. He needs another season like that. Then, yes, you're going to be talking about Carlton Davis getting paid like one of the top corners in the league, I think, if he has another year like that. So that's going to be one of the storylines to watch. We talked about with Brad yesterday on the podcast. Could they extend Donovan Smith? And that might be, by the way, the next thing on the docket. We'll talk about that in a second too. Could they extend Donovan Smith? Could they extend Ryan Jensen? Could they sign Chris Godwin? Could they sign Carlton Davis? Could all those things happen? And he said, yes, they could, for sure. They could happen. You're just going to have more money tied up long-term in those players, so they've got to continue to play well. I'm not worried about that with Chris Godwin personally at all. Donovan Smith, yes, I think there'd be reason to be concerned about that. Corners can be volatile to a degree, but at the same time, number one corners always get paid. So I want to see how Carlton Davis plays this year. I've praised him up and down for last season, right, Taylor? But I definitely want to see more of a sample size before I'm ready to commit to him long term.
No, I completely agree. And Carlton Davis, extremely good this season. Extremely good. I know everybody and their mother who hasn't watched a ton of Bucs football will always point back to the Tyreek Hill game because that's the one.
So annoying, dude. Every time I say something positive about Carlton Davis, it's like, oh, Tyreek Hill this. I'm like, dude,
Tyreek Hill,
freaking half out of the season.
One game. And you know what? If anybody in the league is left on an island, they were running single high. They were running single high coverage.
He wasn't even in bad position. He was in good position almost all those.
Yeah, he just got beat because Tyreek Hill is arguably the best and the fastest wide receiver in the NFL, and that's what happens.
Right.
Like, that's what happens when you're left out to dry against Tyreek Hill for an entire half, and you have Patrick Mahomes throwing you the ball. Like, that's what's going to happen. The rest of the season, he was phenomenal.
Right.
He was really good. He shaded number one wide receivers. He followed them across the field. He played man-up coverage.
Thomas, great against Allen Robinson. Yep. I mean, just a great season. He
just
really
great all around.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he would, like you said, he would have to have another one of those to build on because he's had good seasons in his first 3. This was his first, what I would call, phenomenal season.
Right. This was his first breakout. This was a top 10 type season. I think he was a top 10 corner in the league this year for sure.
This was next level. He would need to have another season like that. But again, I think even Carlton Davis at his best while he is important, I don't think he's some irreplaceable building block of the defense. I think he's extremely important to the defense. I think it would hurt to lose him, and I think it would be tough to replace him, but he's not a Vita Vea. Right. He's not a Devin White, a Levante David, a Shaq Barrett. Yeah. Someone that you look at and you go, if we don't have them, we will probably not be able to replace him, and this defense won't function. You still have a lot of talent and speed in SMB. I know he struggled for a lot of the year, but we've seen him play well in the past. We saw him play really good in the playoffs. If he bounces back and starts the year like he did in the playoffs and not the rest of the regular season in 2020, then you've got yourself a really good, reliable slot cornerback who can play outside. If Jamel Dean takes the kind of step forward like he did in his rookie year compared to some of last year, he had flashes last year, he can be another one. Real big, real long, real fast. He can be another really good cornerback, and you can live with those guys. And you add another guy through free agency. If you keep Ross Cockrell, he's another guy that can step in and play. But I think he will be important. Don't think he's a building block or irreplaceable.
Are you talking about Carlton Davis?
Yeah, Carlton Davis.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I see him as – I actually voted for Carlton Davis for MVP of the defense last season, and here's why. Consistently, I thought his ability to take away a team's number one wide receiver and allow them to play as much single high as they did and allow that with two other corners that, let's just be honest, struggled most of the year, a good chunk of the year. For him to be able to do that without him, imagine if they didn't have Carlton Davis in last year's defense. And that, I think, is to Long Lost Glazer's point, is that he was really valuable to this team last year. I mean, again,
I think extremely.
Thought Devin White had a great finish to the season. If we're being honest and unbiased, he was not that good all season long. He was toward the end, yes, he peaked, and I think he's going to carry it over. And I won't care what he did in the first half of 20 or first three quarters of 2020. I'm just being honest. Like, when you took the whole season as a sample size, I really think the guy that was Carlton Davis because of what he provides the defense in terms of a role, his ability to match up with other teams' number ones. There are very few corners around the league that another team can ask to do that, followed him even into the slot in a lot of situations, and consistently played at a high level. Remember, they didn't have Vita Vea most of the season. So again, you take a guy like that out of consideration for the MVP award. I think Levante David's in that conversation, but he's a linebacker. You know, most teams are trying to run offense through their number one receiver. That's the responsibility of Carlton Davis for most of the season. He did a very good job of that. So without him, they're left to Sean Murphy-Bunting, Jamel Dean, and for some of the season, Ross Cockrell. For other parts of the season, God help us. It would have been a tough situation.
Hey, Herb Miller.
That's true.
Had an interception.
That's right. Herb stepped up. Herb did step up. No question about that. So yes, there's a lot to think about with Carlton Davis for sure. This is a big season for him, no doubt. The Bucs need him to be huge. They needed him to be huge going into last year. I think I wrote that, and I wrote coming out of the bye week, where he had struggled coming into the bye week a little bit. Those 2 weeks before the Rams game and the Chiefs game were the two toughest games of the year for him. Although everybody was lost in the Rams game. But I think that coming out of that bye week, I wrote Shaq Barrett and Carlton Davis have to be the best two defensive players for the Bucs the rest of the season. I think they were. I really think they were.
I agree.
I mean, they really were that good. So, and obviously Devin White turned it on in the playoffs, which was huge. But those guys were great down the stretch of the season, and they needed them to be great. I mean, Carlton Davis against the Vikings was phenomenal. What he did in that game was coming out of that bye was great. So, lots to look forward to for sure. But they are huge. They're pivotal players for sure. Patrick Peterson, according to Barnes,
1 year, $10 million.
We're going off the chat here. So Barnes is saying Adam Schefter said Patrick Peterson reached agreement, 1 year deal, $10 million deal with the Vikings. It actually makes sense. The Vikings have like three rookies at corner, young guys.
He did say that.
A little bit of that. But Patrick Peterson is bad. I mean, he is not. I mean, I love Patrick Peterson. I think he's had a great career. He was unquestionably bad last year and honestly most of the year before that. So I wasn't really interested in him in Tampa Bay, to be honest. And I think I can't believe $10 million. That must be incentives. And they always announce it with incentives. That's got to be like a $5-6 million deal. I mean, and just see what he's got left in the tank. And there's a bunch of incentives if he goes crazy and has a great year again. But Scott, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Sorry. One that Almond just tweeted out, and I just saw it in the chat. Aaron Stinnie's 1 year is 1.25. The tender would have been 2.1. So he's 1.25 with incentives that can push it up to 2.1. So that's not super important, but I know you guys would want to hear that. We haven't reported that yet. No numbers had come out. Greg Allman of The Athletic just tweeted that out. Super worth it. I mean, he's one of your core depth pieces. He stepped in. I mean, if he doesn't play a snap all season, what he did in those 3 playoff games against the Saints, the Packers, the Chiefs, he deserves it.
Oh, I mean, good for him, man. He just made himself a millionaire.
Yeah, millionaire. Congratulations. Yeah. Probably the first time he can say that right now.
Right. I mean, that's great. He got his opportunity. He was ready. I mean, again, was Aaron Stinnie amazing? No, but he was good enough, and he hung in there, and he was tough and physical, and he executed, didn't make mistakes. That was the key. So I don't see a future starter when I watch him. No. I think traits-wise, he's just really lacking for a ceiling like that. But he's earned himself the opportunity to be a key backup for this team. And then when Alex Cappa, I'm sure this will be his last season with the Bucs. I'm guessing here, but looking at all the contracts they've got to evaluate, I can't imagine him being high in the pecking order there. Even though he had a great season this past year, just reality with paying Marpet what they're paying him. If Cappa moves on, Sandy's going to have a chance to compete to replace him, and they'll probably draft somebody this year that will compete. And I'm sure next year they're going to let Cappa go and bring in a guard for cheaper to compete. And, they'll stockpile some bodies. That's what you do in a Super Bowl window. You let guys like that go, and you keep the window open by not sinking money into those guys, not sinking money into the Andres Pete's New Orleans Saints, not sinking money into the Taysom Hills. Those are the guys you let go, and you keep the window open by replacing those guys and not missing terribly on those replacements. Even if they're not as good, can they sustain this level, this standard, basically without, even if they're not up here. Are
you saying that the Bucs should not give John Franklin $16 million a year and let him play wide receiver and quarterback on third downs, taking your all-time great quarterback off the field?
Imagine if they did that, dude. How upset.
Dude, think about it. They pay them like $16 million a year. He's a special teamer, basically, who can play like tight end. And dude,
$16 million gunner.
I think that one of the most pleasing moments, I think it happened this year. It was like a 3rd and 1, and you've got Michael Thomas and you've got Drew Brees. Who else would you rather have on the field, for a 3rd and 1? Yeah. And they take him off and they bring in Taysom Hill and they run an outside zone and Levante take him down for a loss of 3 and it's 4th and 4. And you just go, you just paid that guy $16 million to do that.
Right.
Sorry, that's a little bit of a rant, but man,
if he starts for the Saints this season and the Bucs beat them and they just whoop up on him, oh man, the rip game is going to be insane. I've got so many tweets ready, but I like to wait for the moment. I don't want to just out of nowhere. Yeah. I'm waiting for the moments. You know what I mean? But it's going to be great. It's going to be glorious. I can't wait. I can't wait for the season, man. It's going to be awesome. But we do have free agency to get through, right? I mean, we have some of these moves that are still left on the table. So let's talk about these RFAs. You mentioned Aaron Stinnie. Also, it was Jack Cichy who did not get the tender offer. No surprise there. The Bucs had actually cut him, brought him back with some injuries, or was it a COVID? I can't remember what it was. But they ended up bringing him back off New England's practice squad, maybe, or something like that. And now he's going to be available to. He's a free agent right now. So we'll see what happens with him. But again, wouldn't expect him to be back. So we'll see who ends up departing from the Bucs. Right now, again, it's been a little bit crazy, but I do wonder if Ryan Succop's deal closes the door for somebody like Leonard Fournette. I do wonder that, Taylor, because how much longer is Fournette going to want to wait when he has actual interest? We know that. Ndamukong Suh, different situation in my opinion. Those guys, how many different teams are going to be in on Ndamukong Suh?
Yeah.
What is he, 33, 34 years old? Everybody in the league knows he wants to stay in Tampa. Tampa's made it clear that they've had conversations with him. He wants to stay. I don't think they're going to have teams ringing Ndamukong Suh's phone off the hook. I really just don't think you are. I think everybody's kind of like knows. I think this. I'm not saying this is a fact.
Didn't even Shaq Barrett say today that he didn't get a ton of calls? I think because it was. I'm not saying because people weren't interested, but I think it was such a kind of like tongue in cheek, like you give Rosenhaus a call, and it's kind of like
I think the writing was on the wall for the Bucs and him to get the number they wanted for a long time, and maybe whatever Rosenhaus wanted, Shaq was clearly very happy with what ended up happening. So again, with Lenny, you were in a totally different situation. You're in a different situation. Sue, AB, Gronk, these guys are all older. They're later in their careers. They're not going anywhere. This is the window they want to be. This is where they want to be. Again, so it becomes a situation with Leonard. You got to make a decision, man. Like, you got two teams interested you in an offseason where there's a ton of talented dudes that aren't signed by anybody right now. So you've got to look at your options and say, where's my career going? And you've got to pull the trigger on that. And they just gave money to Succop. So I wonder if by the end of the night, basically, we'll see something happen with Leonard Fournette wouldn't shock me if it spurs him to go to another team. See, I don't know. I mean, again, maybe Leonard Fournette really just wants to come back and try to win another Super Bowl. I don't know. But how big can the Bucs offer be? I mean, the next thing they're going to have to do is to restructure something to clear cap space. I don't think they have really any cap space for this season right now until they clear more. And they will clear more for Sue and for other moves they need to make. But that's the next step for them. And is he going to wait for that to happen?
And another thing is I think that they paid more for Gronkowski than we expected with $8 million base up to $10 million. I think that's more than we expected Gronkowski to get.
Yeah.
They paid, I think, clearly more than any of us but Scott thought he would get.
Well, the void years
all of a sudden
the void years changed. Yes, we didn't know how willing they'd be to use the void years, but Gronkowski basically, we said 1 year deal, $8 million. Well, they're not going to pay him $8 million in 2020. We said, so that's off the table, or 2021. I'm sorry. So that's off the table. Well, they aren't. They're paying him $4 million, and they're kicking the other $4 down the road with void years. That was the trouble with us and our battle plans.
Right.
And so, in doing those 1 year deals, there was nowhere for us to spread the cap. When we did David and Darren, it was easy. It's like, we know they'll spread it out so that the year one hit is low. We're right about that. We just didn't know about the void years for the 1 year contracts. That was what made the predictions harder for Gronk and for Sue, and what we're thinking will be Sue.
But at some point, the money just starts to shrink up. I think after Shaq Barrett's settlement today, over the cap had him at $9.8 million in cap space, and then you lock 2.8 in to suck up something like that, and then all of a sudden you have to get Sue back, you have to get a couple guys back, and you go, how much can you realistically give Lenny? How much can you realistically offer him? If you just sit there and you go, okay, we give you 1 year, $1.5 million, $2 million.
Here's the real deal. Here's the real deal, Taylor. Right now, the Bucs are paying Gronk $8 million, maybe up to 10. OJ's making $6 million. Cam Brate's making $6.5 million.
Yeah,
it just can't happen. You cannot have three tight ends making this. So we're. I know
that's 10% of your cap and three tight ends.
You can't justify it. You have to ask. He has to take a significant pay cut, down to like $3 million at most. Yeah, and you use that money to sign whoever else, or not. You can't have three tight ends in that kind of money with the Bucs. Like, it's just look at this team. Look at the roster. You can't have.
I kind of think Brady does it.
I mean, yes, and I know everybody's like, "Oh, do this with OJ Howard." We've talked about this in the podcast too, but OJ Howard's not going anywhere because you have to prove that OJ Howard is fully healthy, and you can't do that with an Achilles injury at this point in time.
No,
otherwise his contract's guaranteed if he gets cut. So they have to pay him anyway, so it wouldn't save him anything. So it's got to be Brady. It's the only option.
And I don't care what OJ Howard's ceiling is still so freaking high. The dude is like a superhero. If you ever see him in the locker room, I mean, it's like every single one of his muscles is so.
And Tom Brady knows it.
He is an absolute freak.
I know he's a freak, and everybody's tired of hearing that, but it's not like he's never done anything on the field either.
No,
I know he's been hurt, and that's frustrating. But he has been legitimately good on the field.
He's been good.
I've written about it. I've showed you on the tape how he's been good. I've talked Pro Football Focus's grades. They had him was one of the top tight ends in the league before he got hit, just because he's able to create that space and that separation. I think Brady's going to give him the confidence if he can just stay healthy. I honestly think, and I know fans get tired of it, and I totally get it. You get tired of hearing to say it. I'm usually the first guy to be like, 2 or 3 years in, if it ain't happening, it probably ain't happening. I've said all along, I think he's going to be a late blooming career, kind of like a Jared Cook type of situation, where it took Jared Cook, there were drops, there were some mental mistakes. He couldn't block as well as people hoped he would. It was the same type of thing for OJ, but it was coming together last year, man. I'm telling you, I was pumped about his blocking. He remember the Denver catch, he was making plays, and the Chargers game, and again, it hurt. So again, and maybe if you get the end of the season, he's hurt again, it is what it is. You just move on. And maybe he's healthy the rest of his career. God love him. I hope he is. Because I really think the guy is an awesome dude. I really enjoy him.
He is.
And I'm not saying that doesn't play in the analysis. I just really think that I think he's good. I do this. I scout these kind of guys all the time. I don't think he's an Eric Ebron type or something like that. I don't think the comparison's fair at all. He's a different type of dude. And so I think that there's something there. But with Brate, you can't do it. You can't. I love Cam Brate. I think I'd love to have him. If he takes $2 million a year, okay, that's a different story. I just don't think it's going to be the case. I don't think that's what's going to happen with them. And so that's where they get into a situation where, and here's the thing, Taylor, even if they don't need that money to bring back an Ndamukong Suh or an Antonio Brown, I'd rather them put that money into signing an edge rusher, a third edge rusher to have, or another defensive tackle, another pass rusher that could step in. I love Cam Brate, but it's just a reality. They have so many weapons. If AB's back, especially, so many weapons. If your top tight end gets hurt, or if Howard gets hurt, you're gonna run Gronk like you did last year anyway, all the time, and you signed
Tanner
somebody
Hudson,
else, right? And or Claire, whatever it is at that point in time, you just deal with it. Brady can throw at any of these dudes. You don't need 3 tight ends that are that good. But you do need more pass rushers for sure. You need more, and you need to find ways to continue to impact the pocket, not have the droughts that they had at certain times last season, especially against some of the top O-lines that they played. And so I think that's important. So again, I just think that cap space right now is getting eaten by Cam Brate, who I like, but at the end of the day, like, you just got to face reality. Like, it's that money can be used in better places for this team. You can always play the what if everybody gets hurt game. At the end of the day, like, that's a risk you take going into every NFL season. You can't be that deep at every single spot, and tight end is certainly not one that is that critical. You can get a blocker to be that third tight end. Yeah. If somebody gets hurt, you're not going to have receiving, you'll still have blocking, and that's you need to run your offense. You might get the high-end plays that you would get from a receiver in the offense. You get the receiving production somewhere else, and you get the blocking that you need from that third spot. That's really all you need. I think that's the best allocation of resources, I would say.
Yeah. I completely agree. I just have to wonder how much do you think Brate gets from another team? I know we've talked about it before, but I want you to, how much do you think he gets realistically? 8? Not that much. Probably
not that much.
6.
I think he gets. So to me, I don't know how the Bucs are willing to pay him more than 3. I mean, that would, maybe I'm totally wrong. Again, maybe they just love him and they just don't want him to leave. But it's just hard for me to imagine. I think if he goes somewhere else, he'd get at least 5. I mean, 5 or 6. That would be my guess. Yeah. I mean, again, tight ends are just not that common around the league. He has shown that he's a good route runner. He can catch. He's not a bad athlete. He can play in the slot. He gets open. He's consistent. He can help a team. There's no question he can help a team. So I think you get 5 probably if I was guessing. And again, there's just no way they didn't pay him 5 last year. They're definitely not going to pay him 5 this year.
Nope. So yeah, it brings me. I thought 5 to 7 I think would be his cap. Realistically, if you think 5 or 6 is on the table somewhere else, if the Bucs are willing, because of their loyalty factor, if they're willing to keep him at 4, 3.5, 4. I think in my battle plan, I was cutting him down from 6.5 to 3.5.
I just want all the space.
He's engaged.
I want all the space.
Yeah.
I want 6.5. That's just me. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. Just me. I want 6.5 to do stuff. I want to bring in a D line, one of these Justin Houston or somebody like that to have.
I'm just trying to think from the Bucs perspective.
From the Bucs perspective, you might be right. I mean, they like
from a realistic standpoint, all emotions, all real person things aside, I mean, you can't pay, and I know he's reliable and he's got good hands and everything, but he's not OJ, he's not Gronk.
And people talking about trading OJ, there's no way you're going to get value for OJ off an Achilles
1 year
injury.
left
With 1 year
Achilles
exactly
injury,
right. With an Achilles injury, you're not going to get anything. There's not a value there. You can't. OJ's here, man. Like, there's just no way to justify moving on from him.
Love it. Get used to it.
Right, exactly. You got to make the most of it, and I think that they can. I mean, Brady was the guy. Brady talked about him more than anybody else. Anybody else every day. It was like, I'm telling you, OJ, and this is partly Brady. This is him. He knows who needs the confidence boost, and OJ Howard needed it, and he was playing his best football that I've ever seen him play. That 2018 season was pretty good actually, but I at least as good as that season when he was making plays like that. I think he can have a really nice year. I really think he can. And I don't give up on talent like that for a guy like Cam Brate. I'm sorry. I like Cam Brate. It's just the reality. Like, it's not a smart move.
I agree. It's OJ Howard, oh man, if I can see him streaking down the sideline on a Y leak, that is my favorite play in football. I've talked to you about it. Y leak is my favorite play in football. Little play action, bootleg with Brady, looks over to the left side, and Jameis hit OJ for a Y leak touchdown. I think it was like 75 yards against the New York Giants a couple years ago.
Right.
Oh my God, those deep crossers. Someone mentioned it, like Gronk made his life on. The way he can get open, the athleticism, the speed, he can block. He can block Gronkowski was blocking like a tackle last year, so I can't say necessarily like him. But like,
that's the thing, though, right? Like, if you have Cam Brate and Gronk gets hurt, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you've got to have your third tight end's got to be a specialty blocker.
Because Cam Brate's not going to
be playing every down, right? Exactly. But if Cam gets hurt and OJ steps in, then okay, you still got the receiving blocking combination that you need to potentially be able to do all the things you did before. Again, he's not as good a blocker as Gronk is, especially in pass protection, who is, but you keep that flexibility with your offense with OJ. Yeah. You lose it with Cam Brate again. And I like Cam Brate. I'm glad he was around last year. I wanted him to trade him midseason. He ended up becoming really valuable to the team and it ended up working out. But I'm just saying, if OJ and Gronk get hurt, obviously we're going to wish Brate was still here, but that you could do that all day in every position. It just sign Mercedes Lewis. Let's go, Alien. I love it.
Alien's been reading your battle plan.
I'm telling you, dude. Sign Mercedes Lewis for sure. I'd love it. Great blocker. He actually put Jason Pierre-Paul, bodied him 10 yards down the field and put him on his backside this season in the game. I could not believe it. Jason Pierre-Paul, man, he's a savage. He's crazy. I'm telling you, he's 37 and he's still playing. He's like, right after the season, I have no plans to retire. None.
Yep.
He's like, I'm trying to get a ring. So I love him. He's great in the locker room too. Everybody loves him. So we'll see what happens. Wow, we got some Earl Thomas love out of nowhere. Frederick Garrett is representing the Earl Thomas.
Left field.
I haven't heard that name in a while. They've got 3 pretty good safeties. I think they're all right at that point in time. But all right, so great stuff on the pod. We ended up talking about a million different things. I don't even know where this conversation went. Started with Succop. We moved through a million different topics on the pod. So it's been fun. Tomorrow we are back on the podcast. I'll be back with Mark, I believe, on the podcast tomorrow. We'll talk about all the other Bucs moves that hopefully happen in the next 24 hours. We'll discuss all of that. We'll take more of your questions as well. Wrap up free agency week with a bang and a flourish coming out of this week. Excited for it for sure. So until then, thanks so much for listening to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.